I usually have real detailed notes. And I didn't do that this time because I figure you guys are okay if it's more like conversational and it's not scripted. But the other reason is when I have something to tell my children, it usually applies to more than one of them. Like, don't hit each other, like, hey, don't hit your brother. That usually applies to, like, not just one of them. It usually applies to all of them. It's not like Josiah can't hit his brothers, but I don't care if Judah and Jacob hit. I mean, you know. So this is something that God's been dealing with me on, and I'm going to be really vulnerable about it. And I assume that because it applies to me, it applies to the rest of his children as well. Okay? So, for those of you that don't know much about me, I am Roman's wife, and I'm a personal trainer. That's what I do for a living. And I wrote a health book, biblically based, and that's kind of my passion, is like health and fitness and gym, and yeah. So I'm at this United Methodist Women's meeting, and they're talking about an outreach that Cal Farley's does called the Navigator Program. It's not What's Next Door, it's different navigators. And this is to help local people in the community that are in dire poverty, not necessarily due to anything that they've done, like single moms whose husbands have left them and they're living in a broken trailer with their water about to be cut off, and they've got 4 kids. And so this outreach is to help those people get back on their feet. And I'm hearing these stories about these people that live in our own area, and my heart just goes home, and I'm just broken. And I'm like, God, what does this have to do with me? I'm a trainer. I make chubby people sweat. I'm like, what in the world is this to do with me, God? So y'all think I'm like joking, coming to the gym, and it's true. And so I'm reading, and he leads me to Isaiah 58. So if you have your Bibles and you want to turn there, I was reading the scripture. It's Isaiah 58, starting in verse 6. It says, "Is not this the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, and that you break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and that you bring to your house the poor who are cast out? When you see the naked, that you cover him, and not hide yourself from your own flesh. Then your light shall break forth like the morning, and your healing shall spring forth speedily, and your righteousness shall go before you, and the glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard." So the Lord puts this little seed idea in my head called the Isaiah Challenge. And I think, hey, I'm a trainer. Everybody at the New Year has like a couple of like typical New Year's resolutions, and we just hit those. So number 1 is lose weight. Number 2 is stop smoking. Number 3, I want to help people. So I'm like, okay, what if we take this challenge, and instead of I want to lose weight, we say, you know what? I want to lose weight, so I'm going to stop buying my $2 soda at Sonic every day, and I'm going to put that money in a jar called the Isaiah Challenge jar, and at the end of 30, 60, 90, however many days, I'm going to take that money and I'm going to turn that mom's water back on. Or I'm going to stop smoking, and hopefully none of you in here have that problem, but I don't know how much they cost, but $3, $5, whatever. I'm going to take that money and I'm going to send it to Uganda, to the children that are in tattered clothing and have nothing. I'm not going to eat out. I'm going to take that money and give it to people that have no food. I'm going to feed the homeless with it. So that's where it began. And I'm just going to give you guys some statistics. Guys, in 2012, Americans spent $52 billion, that's with a B, dollars on our pets. 370 million of that billion was on Halloween costumes for our pets. Serious. 73.9. Y'all are still amazed by that. Okay. $73.9 billion was spent on soda.
That makes sense.
Okay, $73.9 billion we spent as Americans on soda in 2012. It would take $30 billion a year to end world hunger. End half of what we spend on sodas. How do you think God feels about that, guys? There's people that are starving and we're buying soda. So I start teaching this Isaiah challenge. I start doing seminars on it at some churches and places like Rotary and things like that, like outreach groups. And I get invited to the United Way 211 Resource Center in Amarillo, and the director asked me to come and teach the challenge to her staff because she wants them to participate. And I'm like, okay. So I show up in my cute little red heels and got my hair all fixed and I'm looking good, and I pull up to the resource center and there's homeless people like all over the place, and I had no idea. I was like, I thought I was talking to staff, and I pull up and like literally there's like a homeless man with his stuff perched right by my car, and I'm like, ah, and I go park somewhere else. So then I get out of my car and I'm starting to go into the building. And I'm probably as far from the door as I am from Turok. And there's another homeless man at the door, which I can't really avoid because I have to go in the door. But you know something? The guy's at the door about to go in, and he stops and he waits and he opens the door for me. And you know, there's a lot of middle class guys that would have not even noticed that I was coming.
That's so true.
So I get in. I can't find anyone that looks like staff. It's just a bunch of stinky people that I'm uncomfortable with. And I finally find them, and they take me into like the seminar room, and I'm like up there teaching these people how to help others. Y'all should really like do the Isaiah challenge and help others. And I'm telling this to the staff that works with those in poverty and the homeless every day. And I'm like, God, what am I doing here? This is like silly for me to be telling them. So after it's over, the director's like, hey, can I take you on a tour of our facility? I'm like, okay. So we start walking around, and she shows me the different things that they do to help. And she takes me into, they call it their hangout room. And it's got like televisions in it, and it's got computers so that the people can, you know, get online and stay in touch with their family or look for a job. It's got like washers and dryers. They can wash their clothes. So I walk in with her, and it's me and her and like 50 at least homeless people, and most of them are men. And I am like shaking in my little heels. I'm like, I'm scared. And she's like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Totally lied. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish Roman was here. You know, like, I'm scared. And the Lord just grabbed my heart that day, and he ruined me. I want you guys to look at Matthew chapter 25. We're going to start in verse 31. It says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him. And he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. And then the king will say to those on his right hand, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I just lost my place. I'm sorry. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. And you know the verse goes on to talk about the negative side. When you didn't clothe me, when you didn't feed me, when you didn't visit me, it was just the same as doing it to me. Have any of you seen the movie Bruce Almighty? Have you seen it? Okay. Well, I'm going to give you an overview. It's about a man named Bruce. And he gets the gift to be God for a certain period of time. And God is played by Morgan Freeman. Thank you. Morgan Freeman is God. And Morgan Freeman was God. And there's all through the movie, there's this homeless man. And he's carrying a sign. All through the movie, that's what you see. After my experience that day at 211, guys, that is all I could think about. The homeless man's face transformed into the face of God. That which you do to the least of me, you do unto me. And I said, next time, Lord, please help me not to move my car to another space when I see you standing too close for comfort. Passed him by that day, guys. He's right there, and I passed him by. And the Lord used that to begin to stir something in me. Just like that song, Here Is My Heart, Speak What Is True. He did. And it wasn't pretty. And I had to start examining myself. And I had to start saying, God, am I living your word? I don't know if you guys know the difference between a teacher-student and a rabbi-disciple. But a student knows what their teacher knows. You go to class, you learn what the teacher teaches you. You have their knowledge. But in biblical times, a rabbi had followers called disciples. And any good Jew knew, you don't know what your rabbi knows, you do what your rabbi does. If your rabbi walks with a little limp, you walk with a little limp. If your rabbi drinks Dasani, you drink Dasani. Whatever your rabbi does, you do. You don't just know what they know, you do what they do. And I began to look at myself, and I didn't see my rabbi. And I began to pray, and I began to tell him, this cross is a story in itself. It kind of gets in the way sometimes. I began to tell him, God, I want to be one of your chosen vessels. And here's what I mean by that. I was praying that, and he gave me a picture. Roman and I have probably like 20 plus coffee cups in our house. But we have 3 coffee cups that we use. This is one of them. All of them come from a coffee shop. We've got a Palace, we've got a Roasters, and we've got a, maybe it's 2 Palace, I don't know. But they're our favorite. And guys, these 3 cups can be dirty, and instead of reaching for a different cup, we'll go clean these. Because they're strong and they stay hot. And I'm like, Lord, I want to be this. I want to be the one you reach for every time. I want to be the one that you'll pass by everybody else and you'll clean me up. Sorry. You'll clean me up, God, to grab this cup and use it. And I'm like, and you know what? In order to use this, it's got to be emptied. And then it's got to be filled. And then it's got to be emptied and filled. And I'm like, Lord, I want to be a poured out vessel. John 12, verse 26 says, if anyone serves me, let him follow me, and where I am, there my servant will be also. So I'm praying, Lord, I want to be your vessel. I want to be used. And I start praying, Lord, I want to be with you where you are. God, if you're not at the gym, I'm not at the gym anymore. I'm not. God, if you're with the homeless, that's where I'm at, because I want to be with you where you are. And this week, he just like floors me with this scripture. And so this is a longer one. So if you want to, I'm going to be in Mark chapter 16. And I'm going to start in verse 1. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salem bought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb? But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. And as they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. Don't be alarmed, he said. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified, but he is risen. He's not here. See the place where they laid him? But go tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb, and they said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Okay, I know y'all are like, this seems really out of place for what we're talking about. But let's go over to Matthew chapter 16 and verse 21. It says, from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Guys, where did he tell him he's going to be? Where did he tell him he's going to be? Do you get that, like, resurrection morning comes and no one was there to meet him? Not one of his disciples, guys. He conquers death, hell, and the grave, the most important day of our rabbi's life. And nobody shows up. Why weren't they out there waiting for him? Why weren't they watching the tomb going, he said he's going to be here, I believe it. Why? It was the most important thing he ever did, and not one person showed up for him. Do we believe him when he says he's going to meet us somewhere? When he tells us where he's going to be, do we believe him? I keep telling him I want to be with you where you are. Well, you know what? Has he not said we can find him in the hungry, in the naked, in the prisoner, in the sick, in the broken, in the unlovely, and in the least of these? Didn't he tell us that's where we're going to find him? And you know what? That day at 211, he told me where he was going to be, and you know what I did? I intentionally chose another parking spot. Just like the disciples chose not to meet him at the tomb that day. Guys, death is the only place where we're going to find the risen Lord. And that's when we die to self. That's when we take up our cross and we follow him. Only then are we going to be raised to the place of power in him. But you know something? Just like the disciples, I think I've learned from that event. The very next time he told them to meet him somewhere, they showed up. Book of Acts, chapter 1, starting verse 4. On one occasion, while he was eating with them, he gave them this command: do not leave Jerusalem, but wait for the gift my Father promised, which you have heard me speak about. For John baptized with water, but in a few days you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit. Then they returned to Jerusalem from the hill called the Mount of Olives, a Sabbath day's walk from the city. And when they arrived, they went upstairs to the room where they were staying. And then it lists who all was there. Verse 14, they all joined together constantly in prayer, along with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. So this time he says, hey guys, go to Jerusalem and wait for me this time. I'm going to send you some power so that next time you're not going to run. Chapter 2, when the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place, and suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated and came to rest on each of them. And all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Why did he send them the Spirit? So he could be with us all the time? What? Come on, y'all were really loud before we started. What's up?
So that he does, like, instead of just being there, like, physically as one person, he can be there.
Okay, you're doing good, but let's think. He wanted to give them power, to endue them with power from on high. Why? Why did he say, I'm going to give you power? Let me ask you, did he give them power so they could, like, all meet together and study his word? He's like, I'm going to give you guys so much power so that when you come in here, woo, it's going to be great.
No.
Really? You sure? I mean, is it so that we can do miracles among our own crowd? I mean, it is great and awesome if Renee's ears get healed, but is that really why he sent them power? No. Okay, Roman and I are like huge fans of, I don't want to say Francis Chan, but huge fans of his teachings, of like the words God speaks through him. So we're listening to him a while back, and he uses this analogy, and it's awesome, and I'm going to steal it, so don't think I'm this clever, but it's a great analogy. So let's say that Roman goes to Judah. Wave, Judah. Okay, that's one of my sons, and he says, hey, Judah, I want you to go clean your room, son. And then Judah comes back an hour later, and he goes, hey, Dad, I memorized what you said. You said, go clean my room. How well is that going to go over? Okay, what about this? What if he's like, wait, Dad, I can say it in the Greek. What if he says, okay, Dad, I just invited a bunch of my friends over, and we all sat around and talked about what it would look like if I cleaned my room. Okay, it's funny. Why is it funny?
Because it's true.
Because it's true.
So true.
And I'm the worst. I love the word. I love to study it. I love to know what it means in the Hebrew. And I can quote it back to him like crazy. Feed the hungry. I think in the Greek that means like spiritual. It's like a Matthew 15:8. These people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Guys, we can sing about it all day long, but it is in vain if we do not live it. Here's my heart, Lord, speak what's true. I need you to go. No, you're so beautiful, Lord. You know what, guys? I want all the guys to take notes right now, the guys, because this is going to help you. This is a side note for your marriages later. Roman can spout sonnets to me all day long and tell me how beautiful I am, and he can write me love notes. Oh, you smell good. Your hair's so pretty. You know what, guys? If the underwear don't make it from the floor to the hamper, I don't care. Seriously. That works when you're dating. When you're married and she's had to pick up the wet towel off the floor, it doesn't mean anything if there's no action. Now, in his defense, he can hit the hamper. He can hit the hamper. But you'll see what I'm saying? We can tell God how beautiful he is. We can sing about his beauty and oh Lord. But if we don't obey him, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Action, not lip service.
Everyone clean their rooms tonight.
Acts 1, verse 8. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. And I want to do what my rabbi did. I want y'all to notice, if you read through the Gospels, he didn't really do very many miracles inside the temple or among the religious leaders. Where did he do his miracles?
Outside the street, sick.
Yeah. The poor, the sick, the demonized, the lost. That's where he was. Mark 16:17. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons. They will speak with new tongues. They will take up serpents, and if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick, and they will recover. Matthew 10:7 and 8. And as you go, not as you stay in this room, as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. How many demons have you cast out?
Absolutely none.
How many dead men have you raised?
Absolutely none.
Okay, let's go more simple then. How many hungry people have you fed?
A lot.
Yeah. How many naked people have you clothed? How many prisoners have you visited? Guys, I want to see the Bible lived out. Maybe we're not seeing it because we're not in the right place. The sick are in need of the doctor, not the healthy. So he's dealing with me in all these things, and I'm just like, God, I want to see your word lived out. Like, I look at your word, and like the disciples were laying hands on sick people, and they were getting well, and they're like casting out demons, and dead people are rising up, and it says thousands a day are being added to the church, and I'm like, we get together and have Bible studies. So I just started going, okay, God, I'm going to live your word. I'm going to do it. So I called 211 back, and I'm like, can I come make breakfast? And can I just bring breakfast? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, who's going to come with you? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. I'm like, how many people you got? She's like, oh, there's usually about 65 up here. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I did find some people, and we got together, and we made breakfast casseroles and cinnamon rolls and fruit, and we took it out, and we served them that day. And we gave them Palace coffee. You know why? Because I won't drink Folgers, so why am I going to serve it to them?
Oh, that's right.
But y'all, when I'm there, it's like I got to watch Jesus walk past me 65 times. 65 times that day. But you know what? I left, and I just felt sad. Because I was like, they're still going to be hungry at lunch, and at dinner, and tomorrow. And I thought, why am I sad? And I'm like, because we didn't give them the true bread from heaven. That day I actually started a friendship, met a guy, a homeless man, and met him that day, and we continued a relationship. Because I ran into him later on my journey to go, I want to give them the bread from heaven. I don't just want to feed their needs. I got on this trail of like, okay, where can I find a place that's ministering to the homeless spiritually too? And guys, almost every place I go to, this is their answer. Like, they'll go there and feed them, but they can't come here because, that might be dangerous. We can't let them in our church. It might be dangerous. Don't worry, I didn't even ask anyone. Don't start thinking of Kenyon churches because, there's not people in Kenyon that are homeless. But I just start trying to find, where God, I want to be involved in helping feed them spiritually. And I get on this little rabbit trail going around, And I find Central Church of Christ in downtown Amarillo. And they have this program called Loaves and Fishes. And I walk into this place, and they have like the first 3 Thursdays of the month, they have a food pantry. And they don't just hand the people the food, like they get to shop for what they want. It's not just handed to them, so they give them dignity. But they have worship, and they have Bible teaching, and they have prayer for them too. And that ministry started out helping 4 people. 4. And now, I'd say they have 150 that they're ministering to every week. And they had a Christmas banquet that was catered. And they fed 500 people. And Mark, will you stand up? This is Mark Love, and he's over that ministry. And he started it 10 years ago. Mark blessed me with the honor of getting to give the word one week. And when I was done, he asked those people to come up and gather around Roman and myself and Pastor Rick from our church and lay hands on us to bless us. And so, like, there's so much fruit coming out of this ministry just because of obedience, just because Mark said, God, I want to be with you where you are. And it's just amazing what's going on down there. The reason I brought him is because I'm standing up here like guilty as charged going, so for the past couple months, I've been trying to obey God. And I'm still pretty guilty. But he's been doing it for 10 years, and so I think he's a good resource. He's probably been doing it longer than that, but that specific outreach for 10 years. And here's the thing, guys. Worship in the Word is so important, so please don't think I'm saying it's not. He told them to wait in Jerusalem until they had been endued with power, until they'd been baptized and immersed in His Spirit. And you know what? I think I've been like sprinkled with His Spirit, but I don't think I've been immersed. And so He still has me tarrying and waiting and asking and begging to be filled up, to be used, and to be the chosen vessel. I'm not there yet, but I'm not going to stop until He grabs every day and fills me up and pours me out as a drink offering. I know this was really broad, and there's so many things in it that could have been just a message in themselves. But I'm going to ask you guys as leaders, the only thing that you can do is to pray, or not the only thing. The place you need to start is to pray. And you need to wait, and you need to hear God speak directly. Just because the Lord sent me down to downtown Amarillo. And by the way, I didn't finish that story. So the man I meet at 211, the homeless man that I started to befriend, he's at Loaves and Fishes. I'm like, dude. So we start talking, and he has become like this great friend of our family. He came over on Thanksgiving. He came over on New Year's. Like, he's tight with my kids. I mean, he is like the most awesome guy ever. So I'm like, instead of passing by, I actually stopped and made a friend. And we did have him in our home, and he's the most amazing person ever. And I hope someday y'all will get to meet him. But anyways, God may not lead you on the exact same road, but He may. After I left 211 that day, it's like I had this, I don't want to say a vision like I could see it, but kind of a vision. And I could see, I'm like, they've got like this room full of people just sitting there. Like, they've got this captive audience. Someone needs to be speaking to these people. Oh my gosh. So I'm like, they need to have like seminars and like teaching for these people. And I'm like, oh, that's probably silly. That could never happen. So after I began like, God, I want to be with you where you are, I get this email. It's from the 211 lady, and she's like, hey, we're going to start some teaching seminars to kind of help equip these people in life. Would you like to come and teach one of the self-worth seminars? And I'm like, yeah. And I said, but you know what? I need to talk to you, because here's the thing. I can do that, but it's not going to be awesome unless I can be myself, and myself is like God. It has to come out. And so if I can't really talk about God, it's not going to be any good. And she's like, okay, let me think about that, because, we're not state funded. I'm like, okay, well, I'll meet with you next week. So we go in last Thursday. And she said, I give you free reign to do and say and teach whatever you want to teach in here. So then I start telling her I'm going to come here and talk to you guys. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go talk to these leadership people. What could you do with a bunch of crazy college, I don't want to say kids, young adults. Kid adults. Kids. And she's like, are you kidding me? Oh my gosh. And so then I look at Mark and I'm like, okay, Mark, your thing's growing really big. What can you do with some college kids? So he's just here to check you guys out to see if he can use you anyway or not. But what I want y'all to do in the discussion, I want you to really say, God, here's my heart. Don't just sing it. Don't just sing it. God, here's my heart. Get in his word and go, am I doing this? Or am I just sitting around with a bunch of other Christians memorizing and quoting it back to each other in Greek? Okay? But you have to wait for him, because I want to be with him where he is. And you know what? If next week he says, okay, I need you to move over now and start ministering to the WT cheerleaders, then that's what I'm going to do. So I want to be with him where he's at. And all the guys are like, I think I heard him say that. That was the Lord, yeah. But what I'm asking, from my understanding, Mikey wanted us here because y'all are considering a Matthew 25 ministry, but you don't really know what to do. So I'm telling all of you that as you listen to the Lord, there is opportunity downtown. I think that it needs to be covered in prayer, in preparation, because you know what? You may think you know what you're getting into, but then you may do what I did and get scared. So there's preparation. God said, I'm going to equip you. I'm going to give you power. So there's that part of it too. And let me tell you this too. Don't get so fired up that you just forget about your degree and take off and go downtown. Because here's the thing. You need to have your degree in order to be really helpful so that you don't become part of the problem. You know what I mean? God's equipped you and he's put you here for a reason. But here's the thing that possibly you could do. Possibly God could have you give up the football game to go downtown. He could possibly have you give up going out to eat afterwards and take that money and you guys go feed them. Or instead of having your party here, take it down there and have your party there. Okay? So that's not thus saith the Lord. That's ask the Lord where you're at right now as a college student. God, how can I be first and foremost not a student but a disciple?